When the doorbell rang that Sunday morning, I thought it would be my housekeeper, or maybe a delivery. What I didn't expect was the family who had erased me from their lives for 14 long years. My name is Emily Parker, and at 37 years old, I live in a $12 million mansion in Beverly Hills. I built my tech company from scratch, clawing my way out of the shadows of rejection until the world finally had to notice me. From the outside, I have it all: wealth, success, influence. But the scars I carry are invisible, carved deep by the people who should have loved me most. That morning, I was still in silk pajamas, sipping Colombian coffee on the balcony, sunlight spilling over the hills. When the intercom buzzed, I lazily tapped the tablet beside me, and then my breath froze. On the screen stood the people I had once called family. My father, older now, gray hair where jet black used to be. My mother, her pearl necklace still clinging to her throat like an old lie. My brother Philip, heavier, his former athlete's body softened by age. And my sister Sophia, always immaculate, now with 2 children clutching her hands. 14 years. That's how long it had been since I last heard their voices. 14 years of silence, of birthdays ignored, holidays where my name was never spoken, milestones erased as if I'd never existed. And now they were standing at my gate, their faces a mixture of awe and desperation. I should have turned away. I should have pressed ignore and let the gates remain closed. But there was something in my mother's eyes, a flicker of calculation beneath her feigned softness, that hooked me. What were they doing here after all this time? What could they possibly want now? My finger hovered over the button. For years, I had fantasized about this moment, about slamming the door in their faces if they ever dared to crawl back. But the truth is, when the past comes knocking, it doesn't politely wait for you to be ready. I pressed the button. The gate swung open. I rushed upstairs, traded pajamas for jeans and a blouse, ran a brush through my hair. I didn't want to look like I cared, but I also didn't want them to think I was caught off guard. My heart pounded against my ribs like it was trying to escape. By the time the doorbell rang again, I had composed myself. I opened the massive oak door, and there they stood, my ghosts in the flesh, gazing up at the grand facade of the home I built without them. "Emily," my mother said, stepping forward, arms outstretched as if we'd never parted. "You look wonderful." I didn't move to hug her. "Thank you," I said coolly. My voice sounded calm, but inside I was fire and ice colliding. My father cleared his throat, softer than I remembered. "We were hoping we could talk. When we read about your charity gala in the paper, we thought, well, maybe it was time." Of course. It wasn't love that had brought them here. It wasn't regret. It was my success splashed across a national newspaper. I forced a smile. "Please, come in." As they stepped across the threshold, Philip whispered under his breath, "This place is unbelievable." They had no idea how unbelievable the next few hours were about to become. "Tell me where you're watching from, because I want to know if you've ever felt invisible in your own family. Have you ever sat in a room full of people who share your last name, your blood, your history, and still felt like you didn't belong?" That was my childhood. I grew up in Dallas, Texas, the youngest of 3. On paper, we were the perfect suburban family. My father, a civil engineer, loved boasting about his son's football trophies. My mother, an elementary school teacher, adored my sister's blonde curls and piano recitals. We had the 2-story house with the trimmed lawn, a golden retriever who greeted us at the door, and neighbors who envied how picture-perfect we looked. But behind that front door, the story was different. Philip, my brother, was 7 years older, the golden boy. Every game he played was a family event. My father never missed a single one, rain or shine. Sophia, my sister, 5 years older, was the beauty, the star of every school play, the pianist who filled the house with Mozart. Every time she played, my mother's eyes glistened with pride. And me, I was the afterthought. When I brought home A's, my mother would nod and say, "That's what we expect." When Philip or Sophia did the same, the family went out for steak dinners. When I struggled with the violin, I was scolded for not practicing enough. When Sophia stumbled through a piece, she was just tired. The clearest memory burned into me happened on my 11th birthday. For weeks, I had cut out decorations by hand, folding paper flowers, blowing up balloons with the help of the neighbor's kid, because my mom said we couldn't afford a professional party planner. I didn't care. I wanted something small, something mine. That morning, I bounded down the stairs, my heart pounding with excitement. My mom was already at the table. She didn't look up from her coffee. "Emily, change of plans," she said flatly. "Philip has a tournament. The whole family needs to be there." I blinked. "But my friends are coming in 2 hours." "Don't be selfish," my father barked from behind his newspaper. "Family comes first. Family comes first." That phrase still stings like salt on an open wound. It was never my family that came first. It was always Philip, always Sophia, never me. I sat there, stunned, as my mom began dialing parents to cancel the party. One by one, I listened to her apologize, telling them we'd reschedule. But of course, we never did. I remember sitting on the bleachers that afternoon, the balloons I had worked on still taped to my bedroom wall, wilting in the heat. My friends had been told not to come. Instead, I watched my parents scream Philip's name from the stands, my sister laughing with her friends. No one even remembered it was my birthday. No cake, no song, no gift, just a greasy hot dog shoved into my hands like an afterthought. That night, I sat alone in my room, cutting the strings from the unused balloons. Tears rolled down my cheeks as I whispered a promise to myself. I will never give them the chance to make me feel this small again. It was more than a broken birthday. It was the moment I realized I could never win their love, no matter how hard I tried. That night, something hardened in me. And yet, as much as I wanted to believe I didn't need them, I had no idea how much darker the years ahead would become. By the time I reached high school, I had stopped expecting anything from my family. Praise, attention, love. Those were for Philip and Sophia. I buried myself in books, in science projects, in the quiet corners of the library where I could breathe without feeling compared. And through it all, there was one person who reminded me I wasn't invisible. My grandmother, Grace Parker. Grandma Grace wasn't wealthy, but she had a way of making me feel like the richest girl in the world. She'd drive an hour from her little farmhouse just to spend a weekend baking cookies with me. She came to my science fairs when no one else bothered. She clapped louder than anyone in the auditorium when I gave my speech at the regional debate finals. And each time she hugged me goodbye, she whispered the same words. "You have a light, Emily. One day, the world will see it." She was my anchor in a house that felt more like a storm. When I was 23, that anchor was ripped away. Grandma Grace died suddenly of a heart attack. The news hit me like a truck. I flew back to Dallas from Stanford, where I had just finished my degree in computer science. Grief hollowed me out. At the funeral, I sat in the front row, hands clutching the sapphire pendant she'd given me for my birthday, the only jewelry I ever cherished. My parents, brother, and sister huddled together a few rows behind, like I didn't even belong to them. After the service, we gathered at my parents' home for the reading of her will. I sat in the corner, still numb, staring at old photographs of us together. The lawyer cleared his throat, his voice carrying through the room. Most of Grandma's belongings were divided in predictable ways. The farmhouse went to my parents, her car to Philip, her antique piano to Sophia. And then the lawyer paused. "To my beloved granddaughter, Emily," he read, "I leave my sapphire pendant in the sum of $7,500. You were always my brightest light, and I know you will make me proud." I felt tears burning my eyes. It wasn't about the money. It was about the words. She had seen me. She had believed in me. But before I could even whisper a thank you to her memory, my mother scoffed. 7,500? And that pendant? That's all? My father's face darkened, his jaw clenched. "This is ridiculous." Grace always favored Emily for some reason. "For some reason," I echoed, finally lifting my eyes to meet his. Maybe because she was the only one who ever treated me like family. The room went dead silent. Then my father slammed his fist on the table. "You want to know the reason she favored you? Fine. You're not even ours, Emily. You were never meant to be one of us." My stomach dropped. "What are you talking about? You were 2 years old when we took you in," he spat. "Your mother, some woman named Lisa, was your mom's college roommate. She had you out of wedlock, then got herself killed in a car crash. No father, no relatives willing to take you. We adopted you out of pity, out of obligation." My ears rang. Adopted? Obligation? The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. I turned to my mother, begging her eyes to contradict him. Instead, she sighed. "We planned to tell you when you were older. Then, it never seemed like the right time. 14 years of feeling unwanted suddenly made sense. All the times I had been ignored, overlooked, treated like a burden. It hadn't been my imagination. It had been the truth, hiding in plain sight." I whispered, "So, all this time, I was nothing but a charity case." My sister crossed her arms, smirking. "Most people would be grateful, Emily. You had more than you deserved." Her words sliced deeper than any knife. And in that moment, staring at their faces, I realized something. They had never loved me. Not once. Leaving Dallas after the will reading was the easiest decision I ever made. I packed my suitcase with trembling hands, tucked Grandma Grace's sapphire pendant safely inside, and boarded the first flight back to California. Whatever family ties I thought I had were severed that day. I told myself I'd never look back, but saying you're free and actually being free are two very different things. San Francisco became my battlefield. I had just graduated, but degrees don't pay rent. With only $7,500 from Grandma and a mountain of determination, I squeezed into a crumbling apartment with 2 roommates. My portion of the rent ate up half my savings in the first month. The kitchen barely worked. The 3 of us shared 1 bathroom. My bed was wedged between a bookshelf and a drafty window. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. By day, I worked tech support for a small software company, answering endless calls about forgotten passwords and frozen screens. By night, I pulled on a black apron at a downtown bar, serving cocktails to the same kind of people I dreamed of becoming. Founders, venture capitalists, tech prodigies with million-dollar ideas. I'd wipe down their tables, smile politely, and memorize every word of their conversations. I was exhausted, but I was learning. In the quiet hours, I poured myself into coding. Lines of text filled my old laptop as I tinkered with a concept for a new kind of security system. Something that could analyze behavior instead of relying on flimsy passwords. It was risky, raw, but it was mine, my way out. One night, I made the mistake of confiding in Sophia. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted, for once, to share a piece of my world. Maybe I still had that stubborn hope that my sister might finally care. She listened, nodding, her smile syrup-sweet. "That's interesting," she said, twirling a strand of hair around her finger. "Send me some of your notes. Maybe I can help." Against my better judgment, I did. 3 weeks later, I walked into a small pitch event hosted at a co-working space downtown. I wanted to practice presenting my concept, even if I wasn't ready for investors yet. My heart thudded in my chest as I waited for my turn, and then I froze. On the stage, a man in a crisp suit clicked through slides. My slides, my diagrams, my phrasing, even my example scenarios. He was presenting my idea as his own. When I confronted him afterward, he smirked. "Your sister Sophia told me you might not mind. Said you weren't planning to pursue it seriously." My vision blurred with rage. My own sister had stolen the only thing I had left, my chance at a future, and handed it off like it was pocket change. I stormed home, shaking, dialed her number with trembling fingers. "How could you?" I demanded. Her voice was ice. "You'll thank me someday. That idea is too big for someone like you. Better in the hands of people who know what they're doing. Too big for someone like me." The words echoed like a curse. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, fists clenched around Grandma's pendant. My entire life had been defined by being less, by being forgotten, by being told I wasn't enough. And now, even the one spark of hope I had left had been snuffed out by my own sister. Or so she thought, because as I drifted into restless sleep, a thought crystallized, sharp as glass. If they thought they had broken me, they hadn't seen anything yet. After Sophia stole my idea, I felt gutted. Nights in my apartment blurred into one another. Cheap ramen, empty coffee cups, endless lines of code on my cracked laptop screen. I kept telling myself I'd move on, that I'd find another way forward, but doubt wrapped around me like chains. Maybe Sophia was right. Maybe I wasn't meant for something big. And then, on a rainy Thursday night, I walked into a free cybersecurity workshop at the public library. I almost didn't go. My bar shift had run late, and my eyes stung from lack of sleep. But something pulled me there. The presenter was Dr. Diana Chen, a Berkeley professor known in tech circles for spotting talent before anyone else. She spoke with authority, but also kindness, breaking down complex encryption systems like she was telling a story. I sat in the back, scribbling notes, my hoodie pulled tight, hoping no one would notice me. When the crowd dispersed, I forced myself to approach her. "Excuse me, Dr. Chen," I stammered, "but when you mentioned behavioral authentication, do you think it could replace traditional password protocols?" Her eyes lit up. "That's a sharp observation. Most people didn't catch that nuance." She tilted her head. "Are you working in the field?" I explained my situation carefully, leaving out the family drama. She listened without judgment, then smiled. "You've got a mind for this. Come to the hackathon I'm hosting next month. I think you'll surprise yourself." That night, I walked home, soaked to the bone. But for the first time in months, I felt warm inside. The hackathon changed everything. Working with strangers on a 24-hour project, I identified a flaw in a popular financial app. Our team placed third, but the real prize was when Dr. Chen pulled me aside. "Emily, you see vulnerabilities others miss. Don't let that go to waste." Her words ignited something. I doubled down, refining my idea into a working prototype. Still, I needed funding, and that meant facing rejection. I pitched to 27 investors. All 27 said no. No track record. Come back with more data. Interesting, but risky. Each dismissal cut deep, echoing the rejections of my childhood. To survive, I clung to my bar job. One night, while pouring a bourbon, a man struck up conversation about digital privacy. I answered politely, expecting him to wave me off. Instead, he pressed harder. Week after week, he returned, testing my knowledge. Finally, he leaned across the bar. "I've been waiting to see if you were real," he said. "Name's Travis. I invest in cybersecurity. Show me your business plan." 2 weeks later, a check arrived. $250,000. It wasn't Silicon Valley millions, but it was oxygen, enough to quit tech support, rent a tiny office, and breathe life into my dream. I hired 2 interns, lived on peanut butter sandwiches, and worked 18-hour days. Failure wasn't an option. When our first demo went live, shaky but functional, Travis introduced me to his network. That's how I landed my first contract. A financial firm willing to pay $1.2 million to pilot our system. I should have been celebrating, but the night I signed the contract, an unmarked envelope slid under my office door. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "We know what you're doing. Stop before you regret it." There was no signature, but I recognized the handwriting instantly. Sophia. From the day I signed that first $1.2 million contract, my life shifted into overdrive. My little office with peeling paint and flickering lights soon buzzed with new hires. Within 2 years, we grew from 3 people to 40, then to over 200. The product worked. More than that, it worked better than anything else on the market. By year 3, we secured government contracts. By year 5, major corporations called us first when their systems were under threat. By year 7, whispers in Silicon Valley labeled me the queen of digital security. And by year 8, my company went public. The IPO valued us at $900 million. Overnight, I became the billionaire nobody saw coming. With that wealth, I finally allowed myself one indulgence, a mansion. I toured properties until I found it. A sprawling estate in Beverly Hills with marble floors, soaring ceilings, and gardens that reminded me of the books Grandma Grace used to read me. Price tag, $12 million. I paid in cash. Every room I designed had meaning. The library wing was lined with shelves I'd dreamed of as a child. The kitchen had the exact oven Grandma used to bake cookies with me. In the backyard, I built a quiet garden with a bench engraved with her name. My mansion wasn't just a display of wealth. It was a promise to myself. I will never be small again. Still, success is a lonely companion. Some nights, I'd walk those echoing halls and wonder if silence would be my forever. Then I'd hear Dr. Chen's laugh during our lunches, or see Travis grinning when a deal closed, or sit with my core team during late-night brainstorming. Slowly, I realized I was building my own family, one choice at a time. 5 years after the IPO, I hosted a charity gala at my mansion. Chandeliers sparkled, champagne flowed, and the lawn glittered under strings of lights. Celebrities mingled with senators. Tech leaders toasted with journalists. Cameras flashed. For once, I felt the weight of belonging, not because of blood, but because of what I had built. I was giving a speech about cyber safety when my eyes swept across the crowd and froze. Near the back of the ballroom, half hidden by shadows, stood a man, broader now, heavier, his hair receding. But I'd know that stance anywhere. My brother, Philip. For a moment, my voice faltered. Memories of birthdays forgotten, his indifference, his silence when I was cast out, they all collided. He didn't clap, he didn't smile, he just stood there, watching. I blinked, and in the shuffle of servers carrying trays, he vanished. I rushed to the hallway, scanning the crowd. Nothing. Guests laughed, music swelled, but Philip was gone like smoke. The rest of the night passed in a blur. I smiled for photographs, shook hands, signed checks for donations. But inside, my chest burned. Why had he come? Why disappear without a word? Was he testing me? Warning me? When the last guest left, I walked alone into the garden, staring at the bench under the moonlight. For years, I had dreamed of this exact moment, my family seeing me at the height of success. And yet, when it happened, there was no triumph, only unease. Because if Philip had appeared once, it meant he could appear again. And deep down, I knew the rest of them wouldn't be far behind. It happened on a quiet Sunday morning, the kind where I finally allowed myself to breathe. I was curled on the terrace with a mug of coffee, sunlight spilling over the Beverly Hills hillsides, when my security system chimed. Visitors at the gate. I tapped the screen, and my heart lurched. There they were, my parents, older now, stooped by time. My brother Philip, the same one who had haunted my gala, shifting uncomfortably beside them. And Sophia, immaculate as ever, her hair perfectly highlighted, her children clinging to her hands. 14 years of silence, erased like I had never existed. And now they were here, staring up at the iron gates of the life I had built without them. For a moment, I considered ignoring them, letting them stand there until the California sun baked their desperation dry. But curiosity, it always betrays us, doesn't it? I pressed the button. The gates swung open. Minutes later, they were in my foyer, gazing at the marble staircase, the art on the walls, the chandeliers. My mother's eyes glittered. My father cleared his throat. Philip whistled low. "This place is impressive," he muttered. I offered coffee. My smile practiced. Hospitality came easily to me after years of business dinners. But inside, I was steel. We sat in the living room, the glass windows framing the gardens I had designed as a sanctuary. For a long moment, silence pressed between us. Then my father leaned forward. "Emily," he said softly, "we came here today because, well, we need your help." There it was, the truth, laid bare in 6 words. "What kind of help?" I asked, my voice level. "Financial help," Philip blurted, his face red. "The family business collapsed. I lost my job 6 months ago. Sophia's divorce is bleeding her dry. Mom and Dad," he trailed off, glancing at them. My mother dabbed her eyes with a tissue. "We thought, maybe, you could loan us something. A few million. Enough to start fresh, to rebuild, to keep the family together." "How much?" I asked. My father straightened. 3.5 million. "And perhaps, if you'd consider transferring some shares of your company into a family trust, it would secure everyone's future." I stared at him, my mug halfway to my lips. The audacity was breathtaking. "You want me," I said slowly, "to hand over millions of dollars and pieces of my company to the same people who erased me from their lives?" Silence. They shifted, glanced at one another, avoiding my eyes. I set the coffee down, then stood. Calmly, I crossed to a cabinet and returned with a leather-bound album and my laptop. Placing them on the coffee table, I opened the album to the first page. Thanksgiving, 14 years ago. A photo Sophia had posted online. Everyone smiling around a turkey. The caption, "Grateful for family today and always." This, I said, tapping the page, was 3 months after you told me never to contact you again. Turn the page. Christmas, Easter, birthdays, weddings, milestones, all carefully collected, captions dripping with irony, complete family gathering, everyone we love in one place. Their faces paled. Then I opened the laptop. An email from my father, dated years ago, telling me to cease any attempts at contact. A message from Sophia, accidentally sent to me, mocking my success. I looked up, meeting each of their eyes in turn. For 14 years, you've lived as if I didn't exist, and now you dare to speak of family? They flinched under my words. My father's face drained of color. My mother's shoulders shook. Sophia's jaw trembled. I softened only when I looked at her children, innocent eyes staring at me in confusion. I won't punish children for the sins of their parents, I said. I'll establish education funds for Jack and Emma, fully covered, any college they choose. But as for the rest of you, I snapped the album shut. You'll get nothing. The silence that followed was thunderous. After I shut the door on them, I leaned against the wood, my chest rising and falling, like I'd just run a marathon. For 14 years, I had dreamed about what I would say if they ever came back. I imagined shouting, slamming doors, throwing their cruelty back in their faces. But when the moment came, I didn't feel rage. I felt something heavier and stranger. Relief. For the first time, I knew I never had to chase their approval again. That evening, I called Diana. My voice cracked when she answered. They came, I whispered. My family. They wanted money. She didn't ask for details. She just said, I'll be there in 20 minutes. True to her word, she showed up with a bottle of wine and her steady presence. We sat in the garden under the stars, the sapphire pendant cool against my skin, and I told her everything. By the end, she squeezed my hand. Emily, you stood your ground. That's more powerful than any check you could have written them. Her words echoed through me long after she left. In the days that followed, I replayed every moment of their visit. The way my father avoided my eyes, the way my mother cried, the way Sophia's voice faltered when I refused. A younger version of me would have still hoped for reconciliation. But at 37, I finally understood. They hadn't come for love. They had come for survival. And survival, I had learned, was something you had to build for yourself. 3 months later, I launched the Grace Foundation, named after my grandmother. I pledged $40 million to support foster youth and children who, like me, had been discarded by the very people who should have loved them. We funded college scholarships, legal aid, therapy programs, mentorship. For every child who walked through our doors, I wanted them to feel what Grandma Grace had given me, the knowledge that they mattered, that their light was worth protecting. As the foundation grew, so did my circle of connection. Jordan, my old roommate, now a professor, became one of our board members. Travis, my first investor, brought his wife and newborn daughter to every fundraiser. Diana's children ran through my gardens like they were their own. My executive team filled my mansion with laughter on holidays I once spent alone. One night, as I hosted a small gathering for these people, my people, I stepped into the library, looking out over the sea of faces. They weren't tied to me by blood, but they were tied to me by something stronger. Choice. They had chosen me, just as I had chosen them. And in that moment, I finally felt what family was supposed to feel like. Later, when the guests were gone and the house grew quiet again, I walked into the garden. The bench with Grandma's name gleamed under the moonlight. I sat down, twisting the sapphire pendant between my fingers, and whispered, "You were right, Grandma. True family isn't blood, it's love." The tears that fell weren't bitter this time. They were cleansing. For years, I believed success would be my revenge. That building an empire, buying a mansion, becoming a billionaire would force my family to see my worth. But the truth, their recognition was never the prize. The prize was learning to love myself enough to let them go. If you've ever been cast out, if you've ever wondered whether you'll ever belong, I want you to hear me now. Your worth is not defined by the people who failed to love you. You can create your own family, one built on respect, kindness, and choice. So let me ask you, have you ever had to build your own family when the one you were born into let you down? What gave you the strength to keep going? Because sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones we choose for ourselves.